It's not a matter of being right or wrong. It's a matter of being smart. Being smart on Yom Kippur means...
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rebbe Saf Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom Uvracha. I would like to share with you a concept that I think is critical for us to digest before Yom Kippur. I saw this brought down by the Talmid Rebbe, and I would like to add a bit of my own to solidify this concept. And Kedalkeinu B'Kodesh, we'll start off with a couple of basic questions. The Mishnah in Yuma, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Hey, says that as part of the process of the Kohen Gadol preparing for Yom Kippur, the Heilige Day, he has to come in front of them, and part of the process is that they make him swear and take an oath that he will not deviate from our Masoret, from our tradition of what he needs to do. Specifically, technically speaking, it's about the process of how to put the ktoiris, the incense, on the coals. Because at the time, they were worried that the Kohen Gadol might be a tzduki, and the tzdukim, unfortunately, did not believe in the oral Torah, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and only the Torah Shebichtav, and hence, they did many things that were not correct to do. So to ensure that he's not one of them, because they were also scared of taking a swear, of an oath, so they had to make sure that he takes this oath. As a result, they left crying because they felt so bad that they had to accuse the Kohen Gadol of being a tzduki. And the Kohen Gadol went and left crying, says the Mishnah, because he felt he could not believe. He was hurt that he was actually accused of being a tzduki and not doing the right thing. And the question begs itself, why are they crying? This is the halacha, this is what they needed to do. The sages told them, this is what you need to do. So why are they crying? And the Mefarshim are indeed bothered with this question. They give several answers, such as they were crying about the situation. They couldn't believe they got that time on the holiest day, the holiest Yid, the Kohen Gadol. Even him, they had to be worried that maybe he was doing things the wrong way. But Emir Hashem will suggest another answer. Question number 2. The Rambam, we know, is a very famous halachic authority that we go by, and he is a halacha sefer. So for him to go out of his way and to write so much about the history of what happened, and they were crying and he was crying, it seems to be a bit odd. Perhaps there is a message behind all this historical event, and that is why the Rambam spent so much time in elaborating about the sequence of events. Just to elaborate on the first question, indeed it makes sense that the Kohanim, scratch this also. There's another interesting Gemara. The Gemara in Yuma, Pei Zayin Amud Beis, says that Rabbi Chanina was giving a shir. During this shir, many Amoraim came late, and he was doing an extra nice thing, Midas Chasidus. He was willing to restart the shir for them, until this happened several times, and came along Rabbi Chanina, and for him, Rav said, Ad Kan, I'm not willing to restart my shir. Rabbi Chanina was very upset, and he didn't forgive Rav. As a result, for 13 years straight, only on Erev Yom Kippur, came Rav and asked him for forgiveness. And the question begs itself, as the Sfas Emes himself asked, why did Rav need to ask for forgiveness in the first place? He did the right thing. He didn't really need to restart the shir. For the other ones, it was Midas Chasidus. He was extra nice, Lifnei Mishua Sadin. He didn't really need to do that. Besides the fact that it wasn't fair for the other people that he always restarts. So why is it that he needed to ask for forgiveness? If you did everything right, and your Rav tells you were in the right, you do not need to ask for forgiveness. Another question is, why did he only ask Erev Yom Kippur? Every year, Erev Yom Kippur. He waited till Erev Yom Kippur, then he asked. What is going on over here? The Sfas Emes says an amazing principle. And he says, it's true. It's very true what we're saying. When you're in the right, and there is no reason to think you did something wrong, you do not need to ask for forgiveness. However, there is one day in the year that the rules of the game are different. And guess what? That is Yom Kippur and Erev Yom Kippur. This Sfas Emes brings the pasuk. The pasuk in Tehillim, Kuf Lamed Tes, pasuk Tes Zayin. It speaks about the days that were created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yamim Yutzaru, and then it says, Velo Echad Mehem. There's different ways, the Kri and Eksiv. Velo Echad Mehem means, there's different ways of explaining it, but one mahalach is Velo, and it is not, Lamed Aleph. Velo Echad Mehem. There is one that is unique, one day of the year that is unique. And there are midrashim that explain What is that one day that's unique? Yalkut Shimoni says, that is Yom Kippur. Says Sfas Emes, let me give you a deeper understanding what is unique about Yom Kippur. And this is also a Gemara in Yuma. The uniqueness of Yom Kippur is that the Satan himself, the Satan, cannot be mekatrig, and hence we have one day that's not like the other days of the year. The Satan cannot go against us. However, and this is the turning point over here, this is the game changer. The reason the Satan can't get us is because the spiritual DNA of the world that Hashem put in the world is that we, as the Jewish people, are like angels on this day. And that we know. That's why it's the only day of the year we say Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchuso L'Olam Vaid out loud like the angels do. It's the only day we have to make sure we're with our feet together like the angels. The angels are not jealous of one another. When you're jealous of another person, that creates pirud, that creates a separation. On this day, we have to ensure we do our best to make sure we are united as one. And hence, Yom Kippur will be able to do the magic that Hashem pre-programmed it to do. And Yom Kippur will be like a mikveh for us to purify us from the sins we have. Basically, what we're saying here, that on Erev Yom Kippur, it's not like every other day. It's not a matter of being right or wrong. It's a matter of being smart. Being smart on Yom Kippur means ensure we are united. Anything that causes separation, if you hurt someone, and even though you are in the right, you have to do your best to appease him. We have to appease one another. And then Yom Kippur can do its job properly. But I want to tell you more than that. And this is a very dangerous, scary thought. And almost all opinions do not hold of this. But the fact that there is an opinion out there like this, which is the Ramak. The Ramak says, not like we all know, or what we were brought up knowing, that Yom Kippur cannot atone for sins between us and our fellow Jews, which right now we understand very well why it doesn't, because that causes separation. But the Ramak says, the whole idea of Yom Kippur doesn't work. If you have sins between you and your fellow Jew, even there's no atonement, even on the sins that are between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Based on what we're saying, we understand why, even though this is a crazy chiddush, and it's not the pashtus, it's not the simple understanding of what the Gemara says, that Yom Kippur is mechaper on the sins between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu if we do tshuva. Only on the sins between us and our fellow Jew it doesn't, until we appease them. But no matter what, the reason I'm bringing this opinion, the Ramak, because we can actually understand the Ramak based on our concept that we're explaining. And that is for Yom Kippur to be able to work properly and be a unique day out of all the days, as the Pasuk in Tehillim says, based on the Sfas Emes' interpretation, is for us to be united. How much is this true in our days? We have to do the best to appease one another. It's not a matter of being in the right or being in the wrong. We have to do the best to appease each other. If we see that something is causing a separation, we have to be like Aaron. Ohev shalom and roidev shalom. We need shalom to exist between us. We've already spoken about this idea of shalom being the kli kibul, the vessel to accept the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being the conduit for us to receive the bracha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to help us connect to Hashem. And that is what we need to work on during these very vital days, aside from the obvious tshuva we have to do. Based on this, we can answer, says the Talmid Rebbe, every question we ask. First of all, why were the elderly people that accused the Kohen Gadol of being a tzduki, why were they crying? It's normal to accuse a person, not to accuse, but to suspect a person. We had to remove we were suspecting him because we know a lot of people are tzdukim, and Chazal told us to do this. Why were they crying? The answer is, of course they were crying, because they knew that this vital time of Erev Yom Kippur, we have to be united, and no matter what, this is going to have a ripple effect of a bit of a separation, and that is dangerous. That is why they were crying, even though they did the right thing. Why is it that Rav didn't ask for forgiveness straight away from his Talmid that came late, and he wasn't willing to restart the shir for the 5th time? The answer is because he didn't do anything wrong. Rav did not need, he was the Rebbe, he didn't need to say the shir over again a 5th time. That's ridiculous. It was nice of him to go over the shir from the beginning 4 times. However, it came to Erev Yom Kippur. Of course he's going to come. I hurt you, maybe it caused a separation, you were offended by me. I have to make sure to appease you, because I know how important it is for Yom Kippur to do the job. We have to make sure that we appease one another, and we have shalom, which is the kli of bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is what makes us like the angels and ensures the Satan will not have a negative effect on this vital, critical day. How true is this in our days today? With this idea, we can also understand why the Rambam spent so much time, so much ink on the history of what happened here, because he wants to ensure that we understand that this idea of unity, of appeasing one another, of shalom during this time is vital. Aside from this idea, of course, there's a big inyan even without this whole shtickle Torah. As my dear friend Reb Svei told me, Stam, the fact that you go beyond the letter of the law, lifnim yishara sadin, even though you don't really need to, that is the best recipe to be successful on Yom Adin, be successful on Yom Kippur and to have the atonement, because we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world with midah keneged midah. And if we go beyond the letter of the law, lifnim yishara sadin, midah keneged midah, that is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to treat us as well. I would just like to end off with a story of a dear friend of mine. I didn't ask him for permission to say the story, so I'm not going to say his name. It's someone I'm actually very close to. And he told me this story, I think, around 5 times. 20 years ago, this was not in Israel. He was at Shul, and I cannot remember if it was Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, but it doesn't matter, because for all intents and purposes, the story that we're bringing down, we'll understand why it's connected to the concept we're saying. And one of his kids did something at Shul, and one person over there was very upset, and he actually hit the kid. The whole Shul was in shock. How can he hit the kid? And of course, the next scene was that everyone looked at my friend that was the father of this kid. What is going to be the next step? What is he going to do? He didn't do anything for a bit, and then he did something. And I think we can learn a lot from what was done by my dear friend. As they were auctioning off the aliyahs without this other person knowing, he actually bought him an aliyah. When they called this person for an aliyah and they told him who bought it for him, the person was in shock. I hit this kid, and the father of the kid, instead of taking revenge or doing something, he's actually buying me an aliyah. No one had to say anything. Everyone learned a big lesson, because my dear friend, all he wanted to do is to ensure there'll be peace. And that is exactly what Yom Kippur is all about. To ensure that Yom Kippur could do the job of us doing tshuva, and for the tshuva to work, and for the satan not to affect us, which is what is so unique, based on the Midrashim and the Ksav Sofer and the Yalkut Shimoini. We have to ensure we do the best on our part, and ensure we are united and we appease one another. And Emir Hashem will take a couple of steps moving forward to do our best to enter Yom Kippur with achdus, to be like the angels. There'll be no jealousy, and Emir Hashem, the Satan will be taken away on this very important day, and we're able to do tshuva and connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu yachzireni b'tshuva sheleva lefanecha. Amen v'amen.
This concludes another episode of the Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment, and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on the Prism of Torah.